Chapter 2. Mindfulness, Meditation, and Memory Improvement. Why are mindfulness and meditation so important for memory improvement? The answer: because there are few things more frustrating than not being able to focus on memory training because your concentration is shot. When you're trying to create your first Memory Palace network or encode information, both topics we'll examine later, you don't get to experience forgetting important details if you can't actually concentrate long enough to remember them, much less develop a solid memorization practice. Your inability to remember something is related to your level of concentration at the time you sought to memorize it. Both meditation and mindfulness practices create concentration and attentional control, which is the key to memory recall. What exactly is concentration, then? The answer is simple. Concentration is the ability to pay attention to just one thing or set of related things at a time. Concentration really comes into its own when you can extend the amount of time you apply your attention to just one thing. In other words, concentration improves with practice. Yet, when it comes to using memory techniques, you'll realize that there is never just one thing going on. You will multitask using these techniques, and in a very positive way. For this reason, we who use memory techniques need a special kind of concentration. The good news is that we can use memory training activities to establish and extend our concentration abilities, and vice versa. Improving concentration and memory through meditation. A sketch of the research. Although meditation has existed for over 3,500 years, the scientific community has only been studying it for just over 50. In one mind-defying example, Buddhist monks have been recorded controlling their body temperatures through a meditative practice called Ji-Tummo. In controlled scientific tests, experienced monks were, within an hour, able to use their body heat to dry cold and moist sheets placed around their bodies. Some witnesses of similar experiments report seeing steam emerge from the sheets while they dried. When they measured the body temperatures of the monks, the researchers found increases of as much as 17 degrees Celsius or 63 degrees Fahrenheit. How is this possible? No one entirely understands the biological mechanisms behind meditation just yet. However, study after study demonstrates that meditation has far-reaching benefits, including for concentration and memory. Research has found that prior experience with mindfulness training improves attention-related behaviors both progressively and across a spectrum of subcomponents of attention. Everyday people have also studied meditation and have discovered a lot about how it helps memory. For both scientists and lay people, meditation has demonstrated impressive movement improvement and even fostered stunning feats of long-term retention and recall. Even Robert Wright and Daniel Ingram have remarked upon Gary Weber's memory based on Wright's personal observation of Weber in the university class setting. You can watch this discussion for yourself in a YouTube video called The Path to Enlightenment on the meaningoflife.tv channel. When I suggest that you need to try different forms of meditation to progress, it is because each of us is different, and while the subcomponents of attention are similar from person to person, they're arranged differently in each individual. From an evolutionary perspective, the scientific discovery of different kinds of attention possibly explains the emergence of technique-based philosophies like the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. Each of these paths involves mindfulness procedures that likely address different parts of the brain: ditthi or right understanding, sankappa or right thought, vaka or right speech, kamanta or right action, ajiva or right livelihood, vayama or right effort, sati or right mindfulness, samadhi or right concentration. Indeed, Siddhartha taught that right mindfulness or attentiveness is associated with the activities of the body, kaya, sensations or feelings, vedana, the activities of the mind, chitta, ideas, thoughts, and conceptions, dhamma. Throw in progressive muscle relaxation techniques and I'm confident you'll find that meditation is perhaps the only mental exercise with so much evidence of its ability to improve cognition and focus. You don't even have to be a monk or a scientist to start using this tool to better your own mind, body, and soul. The easy way and the hard way to better concentration. As with many things, there's an easy way and a hard way. Real science doesn't skip over the hard way and investigates everything, and each of us must continually conduct real science in our own lives if we want to experience lasting change. Looking for links between meditation and cognition, researchers from the University of California, Davis recruited 60 people for a study. Half were assigned to a meditation retreat to practice mindfulness meditation for an average of 5 hours a day for 3 months. These participants were committed. Not only did they volunteer 3 months of their time, but they also paid $5,300 to attend the retreat. The other 30 were used as a control group and placed on a waiting list. This was to rule out the passage of time as a factor in any differences between the groups. At times, throughout the experiment, both groups were asked to watch a series of lines flash on a screen. Participants were asked to click a mouse when they saw a line that was shorter than the others. This detail-oriented test forced participants to focus intently. Researchers found that those who meditated were significantly more likely to see increasingly small differences in the lines. In other words, the meditation group was better able to focus on small details through their improved concentration. As benefits to cognition had already been observed for longer-term meditators, some researchers were curious to see whether less effort could be effective. In a study conducted at the University of North Carolina, a group of 49 students volunteered for a meditation study. None of them had prior experience meditating. 24 participants were randomly assigned to meditation, while 25 were assigned to listening to an audiobook. Each group performed their activity for 20 minutes, 4 times a week, for 1 week under laboratory supervision. At the end of the 1-week experiment, the meditation group experienced significant improvements in concentration compared to their audiobook counterparts. One thing this research suggests is that you don't have to wait months or years before the benefits of your practice kick in. So if you're worried about the time commitment involved in meditation, don't be. Within a week of consistent meditation, you can start to experience improved concentration. For example, you will likely start to notice that you are more generally aware of the world around you. Here's a detailed example. I remember one day in Berlin suddenly noticing a giant street sign that I'd surely seen hundreds of times before, but never observed. This sudden observation of the street sign was powerful for a few reasons. One, it surprised me into a deeper level of observing my own process of observation, or previous lack of it. This meta-level experience of observation observing itself creates a lasting skill set that helps you better navigate the world. Sweet nothings you barely noticed before suddenly make a more powerful impact, while at the same time, statements that used to agitate you lose their sting. 2. I began to observe exact features of this ordinary street sign that make it and the entire world extraordinary. Its colors leapt out at me. I noticed scratches from stones tossed at it by passing traffic and the texture of the metal these marks exposed. The patterns of mud caked on its surface became fascinating and deeply satisfying, even more so than the best art in a major art gallery. 3. This appearance of something in the environment I failed to consciously notice before allowed me to create a new magnetic station or location to encode information I could use in a memory palace. More observation of the world leads to consciously creating new memory tools on a daily basis. What's the benefit in this change in perspective? It's at least twofold. Such an enhanced level of observation improves the use of memory techniques which rely heavily on accessing your past mental experiences of observing features in the world. The more present you are to them during the original experience, the stronger they remain when you draw upon them later. And secondly, some of this quasi-psychedelic fascination with previously banal objects in the world likely comes from how meditation increases certain chemicals in the brain. And who would complain about a heightened aesthetic experience of everyday life. Do not underestimate the increased focus you will start to experience. It will lead to profound advances in how you use memory techniques while also positively impacting how you navigate life. Will any of this really improve your memory? Yes, the link between meditation and memory is even more direct. Meditation has indeed been shown to improve memory as such, even without the use of memory techniques in the mix. Another research project used a randomized controlled test to study the effects of meditation on the working memory capacity in adolescents. Around 200 teenagers were recruited and assigned to either a mindfulness meditation practice or yoga, or were waitlisted as a control group. The groups meditated or practiced yoga once a day for 15 to 30 minutes and attended 2 formal teaching sessions twice a week. By the end of the study, teenagers participating in the meditation group had significantly better outcomes than their yoga counterparts, particularly in terms of their working memory capacity. Meditation doesn't just improve memory for the young. Yet another study looked at the effects of mindfulness training in adult students studying for the Graduate Record Examination (GRE) tests, which are a prerequisite for admission to many post-baccalaureate institutions in the USA. Sure enough, the meditating participants experienced less mind-wandering and an increase in working memory capacity. This result was achieved with only 2 weeks of meditating for 10 minutes per day. Of course, it often feels as if there are as many ways to meditate as there are schools of Buddhism. Nonetheless, nearly all forms are flexible. They share in common these basics. You can meditate anywhere. You can meditate at any time. Mountains of scientific research demonstrate the validity of meditation for memory improvement. Thousands of years of meditation tradition have created many insights, even if some of these approaches lock people out of the goal due to dogmatism and self-imposed adherence to a single tradition. Certain meditation practices exercise your brain and memory while creating states of mindfulness. These are the practices we'll be learning in this audiobook. As your focus and concentration increases, the likelihood of short-term frustration with using the techniques will go down. In fact, you will develop a scientific disinterest in the outcomes as you run the experiments, finding yourself delighted with whatever might happen. Making mistakes will disappear as you learn to observe and improve upon any lapses in your memory. The beauty of the challenge frustration curve. It is important to liberate yourself from frustration as you train your mind, because there is no progress without trial and error. In actuality, there is nothing with which to get angry, because as students of our minds, we have only the tools of science to work with. What do I mean by science? Simply this: science is a tool that helps us produce evidence that validates or invalidates our claims about reality. In this audiobook, the claim is that by following the exercises in Part 3, you will improve your memory and experience a better mental state. Further, the more you practice, the more valuable this state will become to you and those around you. Only frustration can stand between you and your effective use of this tool. When does frustration occur? The answer may surprise you, because it's usually not when things aren't going as expected. Rather, frustration takes place when people are caught up in the outcome. Instead of focusing on the process, they are attached to and trying to control a future that hasn't arrived yet. The meditation approaches you're about to learn will help you free yourself from frustration by teaching you to ease back from it. However, in order to experience growth, you must also keep yourself challenged. When you don't have some kind of creative tension or obstacle to tackle, you will get bored and uninterested, not scientifically disinterested, which is more like being a curious and impartial observer. Finding this state of ongoing challenge without frustration can be difficult because it's not a fixed point. It's always moving along what I think of as the challenge frustration curve. Think of yourself as a surfer riding a very long wave. If the water isn't enough of a wave to actually catch, then there's nothing to do. so you hop off your surfboard and find something else. But if the wave is too rough, it may toss you into the water so hard that you're discouraged from ever trying to surf again. You need a wave of rideable size. Next, to improve as a surfer, you need that wave to test you. You need it to keep changing in unexpected ways. This is the essence of the challenge frustration curve, finding that perfect point between challenge and frustration, and then finding it again and again, each time you practice. Life is like this endlessly changing wave. Since memory training and meditation are practices that belong to life, you might think that keeping yourself engaged on the surfboard of these practices would happen on autopilot. Yet, unlike life, any ongoing training practice requires your consistent participation. You must keep getting your board into the water, keep predicting where the waves will be, and keep paddling out to reach them. Next, you must stand up on the board and pivot it around to assemble with both the board and the wave. You must be as our modified Poseidon is to the ocean, its humble servant, and potentially through care, its master. Do this, and you're surfing in a beautiful performance as the world integrates with your body and a concentrated state of mind. No one can do this for you. If you want to surf, it must be you on the board and in the water. Likewise with meditation and memory training. Even if assemblage acts of reading, listening, viewing, and receiving coaching have a role to play, none of these can stand in for the actual activity. You and only you can perform the needed movements. At the end of the day, the how is quite simple. Keep listening to this book, find something you want to memorize, find a place to meditate, begin to memorize, and as the techniques get easier, find more challenging things to memorize. The main mystery we must solve throughout this practice is why the ego gets in the way of your ability to enjoy the ride without worry, fear, or concern for any outcome, especially considering that no one on the planet has any control over what will happen at the end of any given experiment. There is a paradox here which I will attempt to resolve. Although you do not have control over the outcome of an experiment, by correctly running it, you can possess the power to accurately predict its outcomes. Every time you meet a new person and correctly memorize their name using these techniques, you will feel a sense of accomplishment that comes from feeling like being in control of an outcome. This is not to be confused with having control over it. It's just too bad I didn't know any of this sooner.